Anastasia Beverly. I'm gonna say this so many times, I know it. Hi guys, I'm Ivory and welcome to my channel. So in today's video, I'll be doing a 3-day wear test on the Anastasia Beverly Hills Luminous foundation. I'm going to be showing you how it applies initially on the face as well as checking in throughout the day to show you how it wears. For anyone that is new here, I have both oily and acne prone skin, as you can see. So all of my wear tests are catered towards people with very similar skin types. If you find that this video was helpful, I will link up here a playlist of all the other foundations that I have tried. So be sure to check it out in case there was a foundation you were curious about and maybe I've already tested it. Before we get into the video, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. I post new videos every single week, and also be sure to follow me on my social media. Everything is _ivorypcherry. So just like my other 3-day wear test, I'm going to follow the exact same format because everyone seemed to really appreciate that. So for anyone that's new here, I'm going to briefly go over it. If you don't care, then I would just skip to this time, and that is going to be the first day of my wear test. So on the first day, half of my face I'm going to be using a primer, and then the other half I'm not going to do anything, and we're going to see if there's a difference. And then depending on which side does better, I will incorporate that information into the second day. And on the second day, I will do half my face with a brush and half my face with a sponge to see if there's a difference. And I will also be adding powder underneath my foundation. Adding powder underneath is an oily girl hack. It keeps your oils from coming through. It doesn't keep it, it prolongs it, I should say, from coming through the foundation and breaking it up. So it usually helps with longevity. And then on day 3, I will take all the information from day 1 and day 2 and incorporate it. And that way I can conclude that I've tried literally everything I can to make the foundation work for me. And that will also be the day that I show you what the foundation looks like in natural lighting. Everything that I just said about the 3 days, I'm going to put timestamps in my description box so that it's more convenient for you guys, because I don't want you to be wasting your time here. And that is it. So now we can actually talk about the foundation, which is what you're here for. This is what the bottle looks like. It is glass. It does have a pump, and on the other side in big blocky letters it says foundation. I believe it was Norvina who tweeted that the reason they put foundation is for a makeup artist. They have so much stuff inside their bag, so with the big blocky letters they're able to see very clearly, like, oh, here's my foundation, and they're able to grab it. The font reminds me of Wayne Goss's thumbnail text. I don't know if anyone else gets that vibe, but that's what I think about when I see this text. I understand why they did it. I just feel like the font type is kind of an eyesore. So the shade I got is 355N. I probably could have gotten away with 340W. That was actually a pretty perfect match when I swatched it on my neck, but the powder I used to set lightens up my foundation a little bit. So even though this is gonna be a little bit darker than my neck, when I set it, it should be pretty perfect. But if you don't set, or your powder is translucent and you are my skin shade, you can get away with 340W. So on this side of my face, I'm gonna go in with the L'Oreal Infallible Matte Lock Primer, just because the foundation is dewy. So I want that to be the only thing that's luminous on my face, and everything else to be mattifying to kind of balance it out. And then to apply the foundation, I'm going in with my Juno & Co microfiber sponge. This is my favorite way to apply foundation, so I'm going to stick with what I know and trust. The foundation is a medium coverage foundation with a luminous natural finish. It is vegan, gluten-free, alcohol-free, long wearing, it doesn't have flashback, and is suitable for sensitive skin. The bottle contains 1 fluid ounce and retails for $38. A lot of people with oily skin think that they can't wear luminous or dewy foundations. That isn't true. I will admit it is harder to find one that doesn't break up on us and make us look super greasy, but there are a couple, not that many, but there are a couple that I've tried that do it right. So it can be done. So this is 1 layer of the foundation, and I haven't really added it in this section just because I do use a pretty full coverage concealer, so there's no need to add a lot of cakiness in that region. Like I said, it is going to be a little darker than my neck. I wanted it like that. Don't come for me yet. They do look very similar, but I do feel like that mattifying foundation just made it a hair less shiny. Maybe I'm just making it up, but I feel like I can see it on the high points of my cheeks. Like, it doesn't pop the same way on this side. Like this side I see a streak of glowiness, and this side I still see it, but it's subdued. In terms of the coverage, this is absolutely a medium coverage on the first layer. You can see a lot, but not all of my discoloration is covered. I still see a little bit peeking through, but it's been canceled out significantly. I'm gonna go ahead and add a second layer of foundation just to show you how it builds up. So this is what the second layer looks like, and I really only added it in my cheek area since that is my problematic region. I feel like they look basically the same, but again, at the high points of my cheeks, I feel like this side just like bing, like just a little more than this side. But that's really the only section that I can see it. Everywhere else is the same thing. It also built up really nicely. Everything is covered. This is, I would say, a full coverage foundation right now. It's sitting on my skin really nicely. It's not like settling into fine lines or anything. I'm gonna go ahead and do the rest of my face off of camera, and I will be right back to show you what it looks like with everything else on. Okay, so the rest of my makeup is done, and as you can see, adding setting powder, because I always add setting powder to my entire face. It has definitely mattified the foundation, so there's really no dewiness to it. Of course, we know that it's gonna change as time goes on, but as of right now, I am looking matte and shine free. I've been wearing the foundation for about an hour, a little over an hour. As you can see, everything is wearing pretty nicely. The coverage is good. It's not crunchy over my acne on either side. I'd say it looks pretty good on my nose and as well as the sides. It's not like sitting weirdly in the crevices. I don't really think there's anything else to add at this point, so I'm gonna go on about my day, and I'm gonna try and check in around the half point, probably a little bit past that, to show you how it's wearing. So I'll be back in a little bit. Okay, so it is now the 6.5 hour mark, and as usual on day one, I have not blotted or touched up. It's hard to see, but I'm sure you'll see it when I zoom in. But my liquid lipstick always ends up on my chin. I said this in one wear test, like I don't know where I get it, and a bunch of commenters said that it's because when I eat, it transfers, and I kind of just took it for what it was. I need to put a mirror in front of me when I eat, because I need to know exactly what action it is that I'm doing to get it to transfer here, because I still have not solved this mystery of like what exact motion I'm doing with my mouth for this to end up here, because it just doesn't seem possible. Like, how is it reaching there? Oh, when do I make that face when I eat? I don't. I'll just do a little more investigating during my private ivory time. So at this distance, I would say that the makeup actually looks pretty good as a whole. In terms of the oiliness, I do see oil has come through. I don't think it's greasy yet. Getting up close, I can see a little bit of oil coming through right here on my nose, on the sides of it, especially on this one. This one is worse than this side, but not by much. It's very faint. As you can see, all of the foundation is still intact. On the cheek area, everything is holding on pretty well, I'd say. There's a little bit of wear in my T-zone, and in my first impressions I said that I felt like this side was just like a hair less shiny. Looking at the footage, because I did already edit that part, I don't see it on camera, so you guys probably wouldn't either. When I made that opinion, you have to understand that I am very like up close to my face to make that conclusion. With that being said, I do feel like this side, which does have the mattifying primer, does look a tiny bit less shiny. Everything else in terms of coverage and how it lays on the skin is the same. If this was just a normal day, I wasn't filming, I think I would consider blotting in this region and maybe a little bit here, but everywhere else I think is okay. So that is it for now. I will check in at the 10-hour mark and give you my final updates for today's wear test. All right, so it is now a little over the 10-hour mark, and obviously I am more oily, but as a whole, I feel like it held together really well. The way I see it is, it was advertised as a luminous dewy foundation. It definitely is as time goes on. For me, there is a range of luminous that I like. There's definitely a difference between like a nice healthy glow, like a satin type of finish, versus the other end of the spectrum, which is you look like you just finished a triathlon. By no means do I feel like I'm that extreme, but this is a little bit more luminous that I would like. As you can see on my nose, it is quite shiny. There's like a very noticeable glare. It's like laminated, but I feel like the foundation is holding on, like it's not super splotchy or breaking up. And on my T-zone, as well as the upper part of my eyebrows, I feel like that is probably one of the greasiest areas on my face right now, and it is starting to break up a little bit here, but this is probably my worst section, I would say, for foundation. So this foundation is no exception. As far as my cheek, you can see the acne spots. They're not covered as much as they were initially, so the foundation has kind of rubbed off on them. I'm gonna go ahead and use my blotting sheets to soak up some of this oil. These blotting sheets are from Amazon. I will link them in the description box below. And the reason why I show you this is because sometimes when you blot, the foundation will just completely come off, and then you will see patches where your skin is peeking through and it looks super uneven, like you miss spots. So that is what we're going to be checking after I blot. Okay, so I have blotted my entire face, so I am nice and matte again. In between my eyebrows, I can see that the foundation has pretty much rubbed off. It's a little hard to see because my foundation isn't that far off from my neck. Like I always match my neck, but they're not 3 or 4 shades apart from each other, just like 1 or 2. Pretty much is my skin, but it's a little hard to see because it is very similar in color to the foundation. On my nose, it's pretty much intact. What I can see peeking through is just like little freckles of my skin coming through, but it's not a lot, at least on the top of my nose. On the side, it's kind of a different story. It's a little more splotchy on the sides of my nose right here. I don't think it looks that bad, but I do feel like I am harsher on luxury products in general, just because if you're gonna sell something at that price point, then it just needs to be that much better than the drugstore. But to answer the question on whether I should use primer or no primer, this is one of the few times that I did see a difference. You guys know, if you've been following me for a while, that I'm like, you don't really need primer. I did see a little bit of a difference. It wasn't huge, but I did notice it initially as well as at the 7-hour mark. At this point, I can't make a decision on whether or not I like this or not. I gotta figure it out a little bit more. I'm gonna go to bed and I will see you in a nanosecond because editing time. All right, so it is now day 2 of this wear test, which means that today I will be powdering under my face, and for half of my face I'm going to be applying the foundation using a brush, and then the other half I'm going to be using the same sponge that I used yesterday. I have already prepped my skin and I primed already using the same primer that I used yesterday, and I'm going to use it tomorrow as well. I'm not going to change the primers. To powder underneath, I'm going in with the Dermablend Translucent Loose Setting Powder. On the areas that I get oiliest, I'm going to use a sponge, and then for the rest of my face I'm gonna go in with a big fluffy brush. A tip for anyone that does this, the type of powder you use and the amount of powder you use definitely matters 100%. If you use a powder that isn't very finely milled, when you apply foundation, you will get like little balls underneath. It'll look very cakey and it almost looks like it's pilling. And a very similar thing will happen if you use even a good powder, but you use too much of it. So just be careful with this step. So on one side of my face, I'm gonna be using a round kabuki brush. This one is from Bestope. I will link it in my description box below. It comes in a kit. It is Amazon's bestseller and they are very inexpensive and very good quality. And on the other side, I'm going in with the same Juno & Co microfiber sponge that I used yesterday. And yesterday I felt like I may have applied too much foundation, so I'm still gonna do 2 layers, but instead of using 3.5 pumps for my face, I think I'm gonna try and do 1.5 or 2. Okay, so this is using 1 pump, so half a pump on each side. I do feel like this side with the sponge is way better. I can see my skin peeking out a lot more than on this side, but this side isn't bad. It's just not the coverage that I like, whereas I feel like this one, it's still not quite at the coverage that I like, but it's closer to it. So I'm gonna go ahead and use another pump to apply a second layer, and I'm really gonna just focus this on my problematic areas since I don't want this to get cakey in areas where I feel like the coverage is just fine. And at this point, I feel like I've done all the things that we are testing for today, so I'm gonna go ahead and do the rest of my face as well. Okay, so now that the rest of my makeup is on, it's very hard to see a difference between a sponge and no, this was the brush. The brush and the sponge side, they look pretty much the same when everything else is layered on. So I think it'll look pretty similar either way, but I do just find that without all the layers, and if you are a type of person that just puts on foundation, maybe you don't set or maybe you lightly set, there's gonna be just a teeny bit less coverage with a brush side, so just be mindful of that. Everything looks just about the same as yesterday. It's sitting okay. It's not bunching up over my acne. So I think that because I did a check-in in the middle of the day yesterday, that it's not necessary to do it today. So I'm actually gonna go on about my day and I'm not gonna touch up, and I will see you guys at the final check-in, which will be 10 hours from now. All right, so it is now the end of day 2, and to save a little bit of time, because you know I'm gonna do it, I went ahead and blotted only half of my face so that you could see the difference. This is what it looks like when I refresh it. This is what I would normally do when I feel like I'm too oily, and this side is completely untouched. One thing that I did want to note is that I feel like because I use less products, the coverage basically is the same as the first day, but it feels way less heavy. On day 1, the last 2.5 hours, I was just like, oh my god, it feels so heavy, it's really weighing on me and I cannot wait to take it off. By going with still 2 layers but adding 1 pump versus 1.5 or 2, I feel like this is way more comfortable to have on all day. As far as oil control goes, I do still see shine, which is fine. I noticed that at the 10-hour mark yesterday, the foundation was rubbed off on my acne, and I don't see that right now. It's still on top of it and it's not broken up. And on this side of my nose, that's untouched. Yesterday, I was starting to see a little bit of splotchiness, and right now it looks greasy-ish, but it's all held together. I don't know if I actually look less oily than yesterday. I feel like I do. So up close you can see the foundation is holding on just fine, and on this side though, where I did blot, it rubbed off. So you can see my skin peeking through. It's like splotchy right here, and on my T-zone, which is my worst area, whether it's oily or blotted down, it is cracking. But the foundation on my chin, I would say overall it looks really good. I feel like there's really no difference from the beginning when I first applied it till now. On my cheeks, you can see that by blotting, the foundation is still on my cheeks, so over my bumps, like over here and here, sometimes the acne will be exposed after you blot, and that didn't happen. And on this side, as you can see, I am much shinier, but it's all there and it's staying put for the most part. But to conclude today's wear test with the brush versus the sponge, I feel like the sponge gave me more coverage, but with everything layered on, the brush and the sponge are very similar. And as far as adding powder underneath, it is definitely helpful in this case because I feel like it held the foundation together a lot better than it did the first day. So that is it for day 2, so I will see you tomorrow. Okay, so it is now the final day of the wear test, and as promised, I am in natural lighting so that you guys can see what the foundation is looking like. I've been wearing this foundation for 5 hours now because I wanted to give you guys different times of check-ins, so you guys know what it looks like initially. Now you know what it looks like at the 5-hour mark, the 6.5-hour mark, as well as what it looks like at the end at 10 hours. Sorry, I think I got bit by a mosquito. Getting up close, this is what you can see. Obviously, I have a lot of texture. I have a lot of acne scars from when I used to pick at my acne from years, and they will take a very long time to heal. I don't think I look overly shiny yet, but I don't really see like a noticeable amount of oil until maybe the 6.5 to 7-hour mark. It really depends on what foundation, but in general, that is when I'll start to see oils coming through my foundation. So I think I'm able to give my final thoughts on this foundation. Overall, I think that this is an above average foundation. The coverage is pretty nice. It builds up pretty nicely, although I will say that you should probably start with very thin layers because at first it won't feel so bad, but as time wears on, it will feel very heavy. My one issue with this foundation is at the 10-hour mark, if you don't blot at all, it is a little bit shinier than what I like, and even when I blot, it looks like I blotted. So it's almost like I would rather be really greasy at 10 hours and not blot because at least the foundation is holding on together versus blotting and looking matte again, but it's all broken up. My advice is to first try the CoverGirl Vitalist Healthy Elixir. It is a fraction of the price. I think it's $10 to $12. It's full coverage and it has that glowy luminous finish, but it wears so beautifully on me. So I honestly would say try that one first, and if you don't like that one, then try this one. The two are so similar that honestly I prefer my CoverGirl one. But again, like I said, this isn't bad, but I try to be cognizant that most people are going to be wearing their foundation. Say if they go to work, it's going to be at least 9 hours of wear. And if you are someone that is like a nurse or a bartender, a flight attendant, then you are often going to be wearing your foundation for over 12 hours. I just don't feel like this foundation is reliable enough to look good for my entire shift. But I think like as long as you're not sweating profusely and maybe something for like a date night or you know, going out with the girls for a couple hours, then this would be okay. So with that information, do what you think is best. So that is it for this wear test. I hope that you enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to like this video and feel free to comment down below what other foundation I should try next. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.